Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. And we're live. What's going on, Sumolings? Thank you so much for joining us for another product walkthrough webinar. I am Lindsay, and today I am joined by the team over at Intelli TV. Intelli TV is an interactive video tool that allows you to add interactive elements to your video content to engage your audience. It is starting at $59 for a lifetime deal on AppSumo. But before we dive into the product, I just want to tell you all a few quick things. The first is that if you want to tell us a little bit about your use case, why you're interested in this tool, you can go ahead and do that over in the chat room. We love to hear it. If you have any questions about the tool, the deal, how to get set up, you can go ahead and leave those questions in the Q&A box down below this video. We will be circling back to questions at the end of the walkthrough. We also have somebody from the team here to go ahead and answer those as they come in. The last thing is that there will be a replay of this available. So if you need to step out at any point, totally can. And you can watch this as many times as you want. All right, that's enough of me. Hey, Raphael, how are you doing?
Hello, pretty good. Thank you, Lindsay. How's everyone? Good morning from New Zealand.
Hello to New Zealand. That sounds like a wonderful place to be right now. I would love to be there. Hello, Francisco, and everybody else joining us today. You guys can tell us where you're hanging out with us from over in the chat room. That's cool. We love to hear from you. All right, I'm going to pass this over to you for the walkthrough, and then you can let me know when you're ready to take some questions.
Awesome. So hello again, everyone. We're so excited to be here with you today and, just being able to offer this amazing lifetime deal with AppSumo. You might have seen me around on the deal page or, just answering through several of your questions. But in case you haven't, I'm Raphael, one of the co-founders of Intelli TV. So I just want to, go ahead and do a walkthrough of Intelli TV and some of, key features or majority of the features that we offer, as part of our tool and as part of the Pro plan as well, right? So I'll go ahead and share my screen here. Cool. So for today, what I had planned is, I'll just walk you through a few of our own videos. So you might have seen them already on our demo pages or on the home page. There's a new one we just released today on the home page. So you might want to go ahead and check it out as well. So I'll be using that one for one of our demos as well, right? So there's a couple of things I want to cover, right? But I guess, it's a good starting point would be on the studio tool. So, I've got here my Intelli video library, right? So there's a bunch of videos that we've uploaded already. And, this is our Intelli TV account. I have a few different accounts that I'm a member of. So keep in mind that's a feature as well. But let's go ahead and edit some of these videos, right? So let me just refresh them here. I had them open, but I guess it doesn't hurt, does it? So I guess you all might have seen the Spider-Man video. That's the video we used to have on our homepage, but you can still find it on the demo page. And there's quite a lot of content here already created, right? So this is going to allow us to save us some time. But I guess I want to take a step back and understand some of the fundamentals from our studio. And I understand that for the time being we don't have a help documentation. We are looking to building that sort of library for you guys. But once again, we've built Intelli with a lot of user experience and easy of use UI in mind. So because we understand sometimes it might be painful just reading through documentation, and we want to enable everyone just to be able to go on and design your interactive videos, right? So as soon as I launch the studio, of course I get to say my first frame of my video. There's a couple things here at the top that I can use, right? If I want to change my preview size, depending what resolution you might be using or your screen size, you can just play around with those. And it's just the title of the video. Here on the far left, that's the breakpoint title. There's a few different occasions you get that title on the top left. from the top of my mind is when you have a breakpoint that's labeled and it's got a title, or if you're using the template builder and editing a template as well. But you would get a orange border instead of a blue one. So blues are for breakpoints as of the stage, and orange would be for template builder, right? So going a bit to the bottom of the screen here on this drawer, right? So of course you can drag it around, but you can also scroll through the timeline elements if you need as well. And these are resizable, of course, right? So I guess I just want to take a quick look and, just walk through a few of these elements. So on the left side of the drawer here, you can see I've got a few breakpoints, right? And this is a new concept, at least as far as we can tell. And there's been some questions on, how to use them, right? So pretty much breakpoints, like, I guess a way, in a nutshell to see it is like a overlay on top of your video that gets mounted, at certain point of your video, right? This point can be, at the very first frame, which is what we currently have here. And you might see we've got a few elements on it as well, this interactive video animation here, the text, and a button to play the video, right? So you can draw things on that, top overlay, and that only gets visible at that point of your video. And once you play it again, that gets unmounted, right? Like you don't get to see it after that. So you might see, we've got quite a few here. We have 3 on this video itself. This is the first one, right? So, of course, we have a play button. You might, by default, you get the play controls on your video player. But there are situations, depending on, if you maybe building a video flow that you want to provide, flow options for your user, and you don't want them to, skip towards the video, you might want to hide those controls, but you can still control the flow of the video from the elements itself, right? And, I guess I will be touch basing about, such elements. We mainly call them hotspots. I'll deep dive into that once I start talking about the design tools and how you can, draw shapes and things on top of your video. But just for the time being, like, you might be asking yourself now, like, why would you have a breakpoint, on the first point of the video? And that's because, we didn't want to autoplay the video. As you might be aware, browsers have a current limitation if you autoplay a video, and we do support that, but you don't get audio if the user doesn't interact with that video, right? So for this video in particular, we wanted to provide an experience where the video loads with a lot of elements on it, and a very attractive button where people can click on it and starts the video, right? So I know there's been a few questions on why you would use resume video on a hotspot, and that's one of the use cases, right? And that would play that video. So I guess hopefully that gives you a walkthrough on the overview of breakpoints. I will jump into the settings just to kind of walk you through the different actions and how you can customize some of these breakpoints. But just before we do that, I want to take a look at the right side of the drawer here, which is what we call the design tools timeline, right? You might see from my screen here, I've got a few elements, and this is pretty much what you add on your video, right? It's not everything. So these would be the elements that are displayed throughout your video and outside of breakpoints. So if you add something onto a breakpoint, they are hosted within that breakpoint and they wouldn't show on the timeline. So you would have to, for example, I can just click around and mount different breakpoints here, right? So you would click on them and you get to see the elements there, and you can just, of course, maybe I want to move this outside, I can just drag it around, and then I get this panel where I can change the settings and I can customize as I wish, right? So I'll just put this back here and go back to the overview. So these items here, they would be outside of breakpoints. And you might be noticing that some of them, they are not very aligned to the start. So that means they have, customized time frames, right? So when you add a design tool, they get added to the point you are on your video. But you can always change that through the timeframes picker, right? I'll walk you through that later on. But just for the time being, look at this as your, I guess, elements timeline and how they would either show up or not during your video, right? And that means you can have the same element showing multiple times, right? Which is pretty much what we say, for example, with the buy now button. You might see like there's two different, let's say, swim lanes of pills here with the blue color. So that means, that specific button shows from this point in time until that first point in time, and then there's a break in between, and then it shows up again, right? And of course, that enables you to just reuse the same element for different, portions of your video, right? And you can see the design tool type from the left. If there's a preview we can use, to kind of make it easier to identify these elements, we do. And that's why, you see some of these images here and logos. And that's just because it's an image, design tool, and we just, preview that image there so you know which element that is, right? Cool. So I guess I'll jump into breakpoint settings now. Sweet. So still on the first breakpoint, there's a couple of things you can customize on the breakpoint settings. And just before we jump into the actions, which is the first panel there, let's go through the, I guess, more fundamental and straightforward changes, right? You can name these breakpoints. As of today, these names are mostly for design references, right? So you get to see the breakpoint name here. And then if you go back to the overview, what's the breakpoint title as well. So it fits more as a guideline. It currently shows the trigger time from when that breakpoint will be triggered. We've got, I think it was one, maybe two questions on how can we update the trigger time once you add a breakpoint. Currently, you would have to add a new one, but we are looking into, just enabling you to change that time, right? Very similar to what you would do with the time frame, right? You just pick the portion of the time you want. So that's something we are looking to, developing anytime soon as well. We understand that's helpful. The overlay color, if we wanted to change this, I guess, I don't know, let's say blue, you can just pick the color you want, and you can, play around with the opacity. You might be noticing that it's not affecting how this breakpoint is looking like. And that's because the Spider-Man image here, it's actually an image. And that's why it's so crispy when you start the video. But if I resize it, then I get to see that breakpoint behind it, right? So if I were to, let's go back to the breakpoint settings, and if I fiddle around with the overlay opacity here, you're gonna see that's changing on the background there, right? Cool. And just before we move on, you can have different actions with your breakpoint. So the default one is to pause the video, but you can choose to jump to as well, right? And that's a pro feature. So jumping to would trigger the video to jump to whatever, time you wanted to as soon as that breakpoint's mount, right? So you could skip forward or backwards on your video as soon as you hit that, breakpoint that you mounted initially. And you can of course delete it if you wish. Cool. So I guess that's hopefully a good walkthrough on breakpoints and how you would use them. And I want to take some time now to start talking about hotspots, right? And a lot of the studio and Intelli TV revolves around these hotspots. And yeah, they have more settings, and I'll be walking you through them right now. So there's a couple different ways you can add hotspots now. So through a breakpoint, you can drag, you can draw on the canvas if you want to. That would add by default a shape. But nonetheless, if you go to design tools, you can just add a shape as well. And if you have a breakpoint mounted, whatever design tool you add is going to add to that breakpoint. But if you move outside of that breakpoint, it's going to add from that point in time to from the time frame until the end of your video. And each of these ones are treated as a hotspot, right? So just going back to this breakpoint again. So if I click on this bottom, this one is actually a shape that looks like a bottom, but we could, if we wanted to, add a bottom as well. You get a few more options on it. You can change the text color and etc. But going back again on the hotspot settings, so there's several actions you can perform from a hotspot. And every single design tool is by default a hotspot, so you get these on them. So let's go through the actions, right? So by default, the action is none. So if your audience or viewers click on whatever hotspot you have, it wouldn't do anything. But of course, you can resume your video. You can link it to a URL, so that can open your page, or you can go directly to a different funnel on your marketing for your viewers and things like that. You can link it to another Intelli video, so you get all your current videos on your library here. And I guess that just creates unique experiences from your videos, right? And you can create kind of conditional flows from your initial view experience as well. You can open up a email client from your viewer if they click on something, or even open a phone call from your video as well. And you can jump into your video depending on you click on the hotspot, right? You might there's a couple of different ways you can tailor the experience depending on what are you trying to achieve. So let's say maybe you're putting a decision flow in your video. So you could, of course, have different videos where, if you click one option, it goes to another Intelli video, but you can also jump into. So it might be all contained on the same video file that you initially upload, and you can jump into different sections of your video as well, right? And that, again, it's why it's important to have the flexibility of not showing the player controls, because you might want to control the flow of your video and experience through the video elements itself. And you can open pop-ups as well. And there's two different ways you can open pop-ups: on click and on hover. The new video we've released and put it on our homepage from the AppSumo video has one of those. So I will come back and show you because it's quite cool. But for the time being, just keep in mind you can open a pop-up by using a template, right? And I'll show you how how to create templates and what templates are. But you get the option here, and that creates a link to that template. Just going through the settings, you can change your borders if you want to make it rounded or not. You can use pixels or percentage. You can change the background color. This is the hotspot I have currently selected here is a bottom hotspot. So by default, Intelli TV doesn't put any opacity on your bottom background, but if you could, you can always change that, right? Because everything lives within the hotspot and is somewhat hotspot as well. So you get that flexibility as well. And frosted glass, maybe you want to add some, kind of engage your viewers perception of some element on your video. And you could, for example, maybe draw a shape, add some frosted glass on it, and then add some elements on top. So you can design things like that. And you can change, what we call here Z index. If you want to put it, on front of an element or behind it, you can just play around with these values as well. They range from 2 to 10. So, the higher it stays more like on top of, whatever element you might have that's got a lower value here as well. Cool. So, of course, you can delete a hotspot as well. And that's what we have currently for the settings. So I want to jump into now the design tools themselves, right? So I guess, we spoke about the shape area. You can create effects on top of your video. add frosted glass and things like that. That's one use cases, like one of the use cases where you would add a shape. But again, there's situations where you might have, let's say, an instructional video, and you already have, I don't know, maybe elements on the video, like the source video itself, that would somewhat look clickable. And then you can add shapes on top of it, maybe play around with the opacity so it wouldn't be visible to the users, but when they click on it, it gets to perform the actions and things like that. So that's, one of the use cases that I can think of right now for the shape design tool. The text tool, of course, you can add text. There's been some questions on, let me add one of these here. Let's change the color a bit just to give it some contrast. There's been a few questions on, it's resizing and it's cropping. And this was done by design because we don't want, like, what you design here, we want it to be showed as it is for every single user of your audience, regardless of, whatever device they might be using, or, the viewport size or screen size. Because of course I am designing this on my laptop, so I've got, a good resolution here, but someone might be watching it from, I don't know, a tablet, or, just a older computer, or just a smaller screen, really, with a, I guess, smaller resolution, right? So we want to enable you to design what you see on your video and to get, your users to see the same thing, right? And of course, that means, you would need to resize, your text, or maybe, like you just add a break line here. But what you see is really what you get, right? So keep in mind, when you're using the text tool, you can add breaks from the text, like the input here on the top left, and you can always resize the hotspot as well, so you get to actually see the content that you're trying to put, right? And I guess just to give you a preview of what I meant with keeping, like, what you see is what you get in the end. That's the same way as it works from the zoom as well. So you might say, even though I am decreasing the size of my video or increasing, everything stays as you design, right? So that's something that is taken care by Intelli TV for you. And you get, of course, this panel here that I'm dragging around. You get different views of it. Right now I can see here on the bottom that timeframes not available. You get that if you're designing things on top of a breakpoint, on a mounted breakpoint. That's why. But I'll show you the timeframes later on outside of it once we go through all design tools. And you can play this different settings on your text here. We've got feedback on the amount of fonts we have right now, and that's something we're looking to rolling out more fonts options, right? Because we understand that's important as well. Cool. So let me delete this here and move on. So bottom, I guess we have one here. We spoke about it. There's a few settings you can play around with it as well and customize. Images, you can add as many images as you want. So you get a slightly different panel here. This is this is our current asset library. And as part of the lifetime deal, you get unlimited image and audio upload to your account. So you can upload, your high resolution logos, PNG logos, so they look crispy on top of your video and things like that, and just use them. If you wanted, you could use a direct URL. We do recommend that you actually upload the files here, because every single image and audio is distributed with the CDN that Intelli TV runs behind. So that means, your content gets displayed, as fast as possible to your users. And I'll walk you through and talk about that later on once we finish up with the studio itself, because I know there's been a few questions around that. But you can use a direct URL if you want to, but we recommend you use the library and just upload the files here. As you can, you can upload as many as you wish. And these are available for different videos as well. So, you get to upload it in a video, but, if I went to go to another video, I get, my assets to show there as well. And, this is the default image because, you know, I just added the design tool, but then I can, you know, just pick something up here and add it to my video as well. Yeah, so I guess, you know, should be straightforward enough. And if you want to change your image, the option, you know, is at the top here, and you can always, you know, pick something else. And that should work as expected as well. Cool. So that's the image design tool. There's the audio one as well, and you know, it also has a library. You can, you know, select each, you know, whatever song you have. And you know, of course, this one is inside a breakpoint. So you know, a use case for this is maybe you want to stop your video for a while, but you don't want it to be very you know, kind of really feel like it's paused, you know, and more like, you know, we're waiting for you kind of thing for your audience. So you can add the audio extension there. You know, you can preview your audio from here as well. One of the questions we've got is, you know, why can I not change, you know, how this looks? Because maybe I don't want this thing to have this icon. Um, this visualization for the audio tool is only for the studio. So actually, when you get to share your video and distribute to your audience, uh, that image, like that element, doesn't show, you know, because it's just audio. So that's just for you to be able to see it's there on your video and actually being able to delete it if you want to, right? Rather than, you know, like showing it for your users. So that's why we think there isn't a lot of need to, you know, customize how the audio icon looks like and etc. So this is just a visual reference and representation for the studio only, right? And you wouldn't get that on your watch URLs on embed code. So I'll go ahead and delete the audio design tool here. And this is quite a new one. It's been just a few days since we released it. You know, if you want to, you can use GIFs now. You could use that from the image design tool. Previously, we support, I think from memory now, it's JPEG, PNG, if I'm not mistaken, SVGs as well, and GIFs. But you know, now we have integrated with Giphy, and you can just pretty much search you know, what you want and use it on your video as well if you wish. So this is quite new, and this is for pro accounts only. So I'll go ahead and delete this one here, and we have, of course, the web content tool, and this is just to give, you know, enough flexibility as, you know, maybe as a fallback, you know, or, you know, maybe you want to render your website from your video. It just, you know, we think it's a powerful tool, and it gets to, you know, provide a lot of creativity, right? I know there's been a lot of questions around forms, and you know, you might have seen it on our roadmap. We have big plans for forms. We understand that, you know, capturing leads and capturing lead information is very important. Also, you know, depending on how you want to use Intelli, either if it's for training material or something you want to validate data that, you know, you might have on your video by capturing it from your audience. That's on our plans for the next year's roadmap. We do want to get feedback from, you know, every single one of you, really, so we can build forms as, you know, as best as it can be, right? We don't currently have any forms, so, you know, a workaround for the time being, if you need to capture leads, would be to, you know, maybe use a forms provider and just add it as a web content on top of your video, right? So that's the workaround for now, but we do have big plans for forms. But that's just to give you some, you know, use cases on how you would use the web content tool, right? Or you can pretty much, you know, if you're a bit more techie like myself, you might want to write something on your own, and maybe you want to host it from your video, maybe a widget or something like that. That's also possible, right? There's a few caveats and things to be aware on the web content tool. So of course, you know, there's some pages and applications, they have restrictions on how they can be embedded on, you know, different domains and things like that. So of course, if that is something that's configured on whatever page you're trying to embed on your video, that wouldn't work. So it's just something to keep in mind. Preference as well, always use HTTPS for security. So those settings, like that information you can find from the panel as well. But just something good to be, to have on the back of our minds. Cool. And, last one here is, templates. So templates, it's a very interesting tool in my opinion, especially if you start having more videos, right? So let's say, let's put a potential case where you use Intelli TV to have most of your marketing videos, or maybe, your banner videos on top of your web applications, or maybe your shop applications. Then, you might have situations where you always want your logo at the top right, or you might have, a menu that you spend a lot of time building, and that menu takes you to very specific parts of your website or application. And you don't want to keep rebuilding that, right? And we totally understand that. So this template tool here would allow you to immediately insert all of those elements from a template to your video, right? I guess what's important to understand is, if you use the template design tool, that copies everything from that template from that point on. So that means, if you were to change things on the template moving forwards, your past videos would still have all those elements that were inserted in that point in time. So it's more like this is my blueprint, so that's what I want to use now. And then, if you ever get to change your template in the future, you would not get affected on your old videos, right? Because we understand it's important, for having designs as fresh as they might have to be. But again, if you were to want to update these on your videos, you can, of course, delete the elements that were put in place for you and just reinsert the template, right? But that's, I guess, just something to keep in mind on when to use templates as a design tool. If you use a template as a pop-up, then that gets linked as a reference. And if you change the template from the top of my mind, that would reflect straight away from your pop-up. So it's just 2 different use cases from templates, depending on how you use them. But I'll take some time to walk you through a pop-up template so you can understand what it is, because the other video I have here as an example has that. But just before we move on, I want to talk a bit about how you can configure your timeframes and, of course, the share options from your video as well. So, of course, just taking a look at our overview again. So, there's a couple elements here with very customized timeframes. So let's take a look at the Buy Now button. So, you might have noticed that my video has moved to a different place. And that's, by design. If you click something on the timeline to make your lives easier, we're just gonna, we just move the video to that first point in the video where those elements get mounted, right? So that's, that's the Buy Now button that I've clicked on my timeline. So if I click on it, I get the panels to show up. And you might notice here from my panel, I have 2 time frames, right? And that's how we get to create, this intervals kind of functionality, right? So you can say you can add as many, time frames as you want. And, you get to see here at my my design tools timeline that it's changed, because by default, it takes the whole amount of the video. But, you can just start playing around with it and just place it, where you want it to be. And this is very customizable, as, you can even go up to milliseconds, right? On these third one here as well. If you want to be very precise on where you want to show those items. And, if you don't want those time frames, you can just go ahead and delete them and remove them, right? So hopefully that's straightforward. And, of course, these need to be within the time of your video. So, If you go above it, that's just going to show, red border, and, you just got to go ahead and update it to be within the range of your video duration. And, I guess just last thing from this video is, what if we wanted to share our video, right? Let's say, I'm ready. It looks pretty awesome. I want to, distribute it to my audience. So what we can do here, there's a share button here. There's a few settings you can configure. So, autoplay. You don't get sound on if you do that, but you get the video to autoplay. Maybe sound is not important for you. That's a setting that can be played around. You can replay when finished if you want to create a loop effect. That's possible as well. You can display or not display the video controls and video bars, right? Right now, we only have one single control bar on your video that we get to distribute with it. But it's also on our roadmap to be, to provide a few more options and, much more granular customization of, the video controls themselves. And, on the top here of my share dialog, I get to get two options. So one is a direct link. So that's just a very short URL and a unique URL that you could share. Maybe you're putting a Facebook post. That's what you would use. The videos, they do not run from the timeline, for major platforms, for security purposes. You just, that's how it is. And they want to host their video as well, right? But you can create funnels, from a direct link, and you get your video thumbnail to show up, and you can start your funnel from there. And the second option here would be an embed HTML markup that you can use. Maybe using a website builder, you can include that, or maybe you're a bit more techy and you manage your source code by yourselves, and you can use that embed option to embed the video onto your application, and you can of course update values as the width or height of your video on how it's going to render from your application itself, right? So yeah, that's the two main share options as of today, and hopefully they should be straightforward, and you should be able to copy them from here. Cool. So I guess just before we finalize the studio walkthrough, I want to take some time to just go on to the second video I have here and show you how the pop-ups look like. But before we show up how it's been implemented and designed, let's take a look on how it looks when you're actually watching it.
You wrote the script, hired the actors and crew.
So let me take the sound off of this. So you might have seen a few elements showing up on this video right now. So the one that's got a trigger for the pop-ups is the plans and features at the top right. And the action that's configured on it is on hover. So as soon as I put my mouse on top of it, I get this pop-up to mount, right? And this can be designed on your canvas to show different, right? Like we've chose to add some frosted glass behind it, add a shape and add some text on it. And of course, we have an option to resume the video, but you could at this stage perhaps add a link or add a button with a link to your web page as well if you wanted to, right? So just going back to the studio to show you how this was designed. So if we go, so just of course, let's mount that first breakpoint. That's what I just did. And we have this template here, right? So as soon as I click it, it mounts. The orange borders is to indicate you're actually designing a template. And these templates, you can use them across different videos if you wish as well. So you get to design it on maybe on a current video, but you get to reuse them in different videos if you want as well. And that's exactly that template we just saw in action. And it was used from this hotspot here. Let's find it. So plans and features. So this is a text design tool. But if we look at the actions, it opens a pop-up and it opens the plans and features pop-up, right? So let's say, if I wanted to change some of the deal here, I would just update the image and, it would reflect on that pop-up. Again, templates used within pop-ups behave as references. So if you update that template, it gets reflected in real time as of today. When you open a pop-up, if you insert that template on the current video in maybe on a hotspot, maybe on a breakpoint, or maybe on your timeline, those elements, they get copied to video. So you can design it. Maybe you want to change something just for a very specific video, right? That's the reason why it behaves like that. Cool. So I think that's, pretty much what I had planned to walk you through today on the studio tool. But just before we go into questions and analysis, I'm just going to go back to my library. There's a few things I want to show up here, right? So this is the view you get as soon as you sign in. I'm sure that, most of you are going to be familiar with this by now. And, these are just your videos that you get on these are our library, right? And, you can edit them as you wish. If you wanted to see analytics from these videos, of course, you can just reach out from here. And yeah, you would get to have all this data here. Like you can, see how many interactions you had, views, and, there's up to 90 days of data that you can see, your play rate, and, this tells you how engaged your users are. And, there's more telemetry we do ingest right now. And, we have plans on adding more reporting data on top of this this section as well in Intelli Tv. So we are consuming the data right now. We just need to keep working on how we present such data for every single one of you. So there will be things rolled out such as being able to label hotspots as well. So eventually when someone clicks a hotspot, you would be able to tell which hotspot they clicked. So of course, but for doing so, we need to provide an option for you to label hotspots, which we don't currently have, but we do know as of this stage which hotspots were clicked. If you want to upload your video, you just do it from here. You can find our roadmap from this option here at the top right. And we've got this drawer here right beside it on what's new. And we usually use these for large announcements on new tools, right? But you might have seen even like we are releasing very often, and the GIF design tool, it's very recent, and it just hasn't shown up here, right? We reserved this one for what we call bigger rocks on our roadmap, but do let us know if you want to get updated on every single, maybe even smaller features and improvements, and we could be adding these here as well. That's fine. Cool. And from this option here on my avatar, there's a couple links I could use here. So if you have stacked codes on your AppSumo deal, you're going to be able to invite people. So you can get different members on your Intelli Tv account, and there's different roles. So of course, there's only viewers. They wouldn't be able to edit the video, but they can see the library. They can watch the videos. Admins, they would be able to invite people, remove people from the account, and editors, of course, they can edit your videos and libraries and things like that. If you ever need to remove a member, you can do it from the members page here. You can change the role from this drop down here, and you can see how many seats you have and how many members you currently have from this UI. And the only one you wouldn't be able to change right now is the owner. For doing that, you would have to reach out support at Intelli Tv for us to do that ownership change. And there's a couple of different settings here from your account as well, but you can check your subscription anytime from here, and that gets to show you quota, and you can see the current usage as well. So this is our current usage from our account. And you can see we have up to 100 hours on our quota. So that's included viewing streaming hours for our account and the amount of videos we have used on the library, right? So this has been answered a few times on our page, but the pro account doesn't have any sort of limits. What you get on the deal right now is what we call included, hours usage and video space and storage on your library, right? So that's all that's included on the video. There might be situations where your viewing hours or your storage usage might go a bit beyond on what you have on your quota, and that would incur excess fees, right? We have updated as much as possible to offer competitive pricing on this. Recently, you might have seen it on the deal. We've got a lot of feedback from all of you. Yeah, you can check it updated on the plans page as well. But the thing to keep in mind, there's a couple of things I wanna clear out now is the streaming usage that in a nutshell is the video content that gets delivered to your audience, and that's monthly, right? So that the first one there, that first bar gets reset every first day of the month. And you go back to 0 and then you start filling up your quota again. The video limit usage, that's overall, so that doesn't reset because that's just the amount of videos you have on your library. And on the streaming usage, I know there's been a lot of question on this. I want to talk a bit about the technicals on it as well. But one thing to keep in mind is we don't charge and we don't accrue to the quota, right? Based on your video size. Of course, maybe if you have a video that's 10 minutes long and your audience watches everything, that does incur into 10 minutes against your quota. But that would mean 100% retention from all your videos, which from a marketing perspective, we think is really like a bold target to reach. Please let me know if you think I'm mistaken. I want to give you feedback as well. But the way the mechanism works is in Intelli TV is we serve fractions of your video for your audience. So those fractions accumulate against the quota, right? So if someone were to watch half of your video, you wouldn't be accrued the total amount of your video, right? There is some buffering that we do to make sure video is ready to be played as soon as your user wants to play, and just to compensate in between maybe bandwidth kind of ups and downs. So there is some buffering. Each fraction in each segment of the video that's served is 30 seconds as of today. In those fractions is what accrues against the quota, right? But if the user doesn't play your video throughout, or everything, like those fragments, they wouldn't be loaded, right? Or buffered up. And just before I wrap up on my side of things, on the usage and on the streaming, one of the reasons why, I know some of you have questions on, this looks a bit expensive. And, I guess hopefully, we're trying to offer something as competitive and as, as fair as possible in terms of usage. But we do use many edge locations for CDN locations throughout the globe. So that means, once you upload your video to Intelli TV, that gets propagated, for many different CDN points, because, for us, quality and, audience and viewer quality of services is very important, right? So, and of course, there's a very, very substantial and, not trivial cost in doing so. And, that needs to flow somewhere, right? But, the terms and, how we try to, how we've put the usage in place and the pricing, it's basically on, you pay for what you use, right? So If you do use it a lot, that would incur on excess fees. But that means, you're potentially getting a lot of marketing conversions from your call to actions and things like that from your video. Cool. So I guess that's, enough of me talking for now. Hopefully, that was, in a way, very clearing or helpful in terms of product walkthrough. So I want to jump into, questions and answers now.
Awesome. Thank you so much for walking us through all of that. We did get a lot of questions that were asked, already answered by your team, obviously, but we're going to run through some of those right now. Couple unanswered questions. If a person watches a single 5-minute video 5 times, does that equal 5 minutes on the usage quota or 25 minutes?
If they don't refresh the page, those fragments would be loaded and they wouldn't accrue to your quota. So you can use like the replay option. Maybe you have, let's say, a device that's on your business and it's running a video where people get to watch it. So if that page was, open up once a day, that video would be loaded there and it would just count once 5 minutes, right? But, if the page gets refreshed, that gets, consumed again from your quota.
Cool. We have Odium and it's an on-demand channel. All of our program videos reside on their server. We'd like to use Intelli interactive videos for our on-demand subscribers. Would we ever be able to download our videos?
So, I guess that's a fair question. One we've got quite a few times. And, we would love to be able in doing so, but the core on how, Intelli works and how the technology works, it relies on, the web, right? And as of today, if we were to export that to, all the known and, well-supported video formats that are around the market, you just don't get that sort of interactivity, right? You just get the video itself.
Cool. All right. We're going to go through some of these, some more questions, Sumolings. If you have any questions that you would like answered, go ahead and throw those in now. Can you tell us a little bit about the button effects and other elements that they can utilize?
Was that question asked just now? Because we walked through.
Oh, it was asked a little earlier. Some of these are
we
older
did walk
questions.
through all of them, right?
Cool.
And we have
yeah, some of these questions are from a while ago.
Yeah, and we have a few things, on the oven cooking by, our development team right now. So, we've released Giphy integration soon, and we're planning on rolling out, a sticker tool as well. So, we're always looking to increasing our design tool, options. But if you, of course, if you have ideas and, potential integrations from those tools itself, we're more than welcome to, getting those ideas and as excited as you guys to, implement them if they're feasible, right?
Yep. To that end, let's talk a little bit about roadmap. What are you looking forward to on the roadmap? What do Sumolings have to look forward to?
So let me just get our roadmap here as a reference. Do I go ahead and share my screen or?
Yeah, please go for it.
Cool. So, there's a couple of things we had planned and, a couple of those things, they have been delivered already. And of course, we understand, there's a couple of these, they're very important as well, right? Like I've mentioned about forms before. So, of course, from the roadmap link, you can find a few of our, what we call big rocks, right? There's more stuff that we will be releasing in between, right? So for example, I've just spoke about the sticker design tool, which is not mentioned here, right? Because, we don't consider it to be as, maybe as big or as important as these, but there's value that, gets added with them. In terms of prioritization, we're looking to getting everyone's feedback right now from the roadmap and things that you wish the most, because we're looking to, of course, we're just around Christmas. So, we're just deploying and releasing a few smaller features as giveaway and sticker for this month, as we are very busy with the AppSumo launch. But for next year, we're looking to starting on these big rocks, and I guess there's no better time than now to let us know which ones you would prefer to have first, so we can just focus on them really.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And those are actually all the questions that we have for today. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you so much, Sumolings, for joining us today. And thank you so much, Raphael, for walking us through all of this. If you have not already, you can go to appsumo.com/Intelli Tv. This is starting at $59 for a lifetime deal. And of course, it is backed by AppSumo's 60-day guarantee. So you can go ahead, get set up, play around with it, see how this works for you. And then, of course, let us know your reviews and comments on the deal page. We do love to read those. And you can always ask any more questions that you have on the deal page as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good one.
Thank you, Lindsay. Bye.